Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Joining us today to talk about to move or not to move is Janice Goldmintz. Janice, founder of Talk About Aging, helps children and their aging parents get in sync any age, any stage. Her master's degree in gerontology has given her wide insight into what can be done to assist our seniors in creating the highest quality of life possible, no matter what the challenges may be. As a child of aging parents, she has had to sift through a myriad of options, changes, and emotional situations. How are you doing today, Janice?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I am going to turn it over to you. To move or not to move?
That is the question. And the truth is, this question comes up at various times in our lives. It could be when we're in university and we're deciding, should we stay at home to go to university or go out of town? Could be when we get married, whose place do we want to live at? When we have children. But today we're thinking about it as we get older, and how is that going to affect our quality of life as we do get older? So why is this question important? The truth is, as we're getting older, things do change for us. We look at retirement, we look at the space that we may need to be in, we look at our abilities, what it is we want to be able to be doing in our lives. And so this question may come up, and it may come up in your 60s or 70s or 80s or 90s. It could be at any of these stages. But the truth is, we don't tend to think about this question very often. We just kind of go on and go on and go on and hope things just go sailing along. But sometimes an event can happen. It could be a health change. It could be a spouse passing away. It could be a change in income. It could be a number of things that we may not be prepared for, or we may have not planned for. And so to me, having knowledge is power. And so the more we think about this and have that plan in place, the easier it might be for us going forward. The other thing is, we may think about our parents when they aged, or other loved ones, and think, I don't even want to think about these things happening to me. So I'm just going to put it in the back of my mind. And it's not a topic that we sit down as a family and tend to discuss on a regular basis. So let's just see what we can do and see if we can create a plan. I have created a long plan for this, and I have a lot of information. And in doing that, I went online and did a survey of 2,000 Canadians all across the country. And they were people who were from 70 years old and up. Equal amount of male and female, because I wanted to try and get a really good representation. And it's quite interesting what people said about, are they ready to move or not to move? 28% of people were emphatic. I'm not moving. You are going to take me out of this place in a box. And I think that's really funny because, you know, at least they have put some thought into it, and they have a very strong opinion. 24% of people said, I'm just not going to move, but with not the same kind of passion about it. 21% of people have said, I haven't even thought about this. This isn't even on my radar. We have 17% of people who said, yeah, I've thought about moving. I just don't have a timeline for it. 6% of people are in the midst of moving now. Either they have planned for the move, they're in the midst of getting ready for it, or they're just about to move. And 2% of people said they're not sure whether they're going to move or not. And I find it interesting that almost half of the population is at least in that thought process, and over half the population is absolutely not. And it's something that if we do ignore it, it is going to come up again and again as we get older, because things do change for us. So let's think about, what is it that we need to know to help us make the best possible decision? And the thing that I want to say here is, I'm not here to tell you if you should move or you shouldn't move. I'm only here to tell you how you can make the best solution for your particular situation. So first thing that might come to mind is, what is your health situation? What do you experience today, and what might you foresee in the next 5 or 10 years? And have that in the back of your mind. Then let's look at real estate. And when I say real estate, it's really just looking at your present living situation. So if you're living in a home or in a condominium that you own, it's looking at things like, what is the value of my home or condominium? What kind of options are there going to be for me? What would make the most sense for me in terms of what I want for my life going forward in the physical space that I want to be in? Then we have the financial side of it, and that is tied in, of course, to the real estate, but it's also, do I have pensions? Do I have investment income? How much money do I foresee having for care needs down the road? Because that's all important factors in what it is we're going to do going forward. And then lastly, sitting down with your family and your friends and other people whose opinions that matter to you to have these discussions so that you can make that best decision for you and your own situation. So when I'm talking about moving, what am I really speaking of? So people may be living in single dwellings, and it could be a single home, it could be a townhome, it could be a duplex, any of those. You might be living in an apartment, you might be living in a condominium. And what are the options when you're talking about moving? Well, when you're in a single home, it could be that you're moving to an apartment or a condominium so that you're going from maybe a multi-level home to a one-level type of a living situation. And you could be going from owning to owning if you're going from a home to a condo, or home ownership to renting if you're in an apartment. The other option is a retirement residence, and that's definitely an option that's out there. And when I'm talking about retirement residences, think in your mind, not just old folks' home, but active living. Some of these places are absolutely incredible in what they can provide for our older adults, or for you as an older adult, so that you can have a very active lifestyle. So what are the things that could enter our mind in thinking about this? Well, we're going to go forward and discuss that in a couple of minutes, but these are generally the types of moves that we're thinking about. And there is also the option of staying where you are. And what would you need to think about to see in your own space to see where you are now? Well, let's look at, do you have the ability at some point to bring in help for yourself? Is your home that you're in now adaptable? Would you be able to maneuver with a walker or with a wheelchair? Would you be able to bathe if you needed to have a different kind of a shower system, a stand-up shower as opposed to a bathtub? Could you put in things like ramps or grab bars or that stand-up shower? If you're in a multi-level home, could you put your bedroom on the main level and have that as an option? So even staying at home, there are things that you would want to think about. What would make the most sense for you? In terms of moving, again, we're going to think about, if I'm living in a single home, what is the condition of my home at this time? Do I need to make repairs? Are there things that would need to be done in order for this to be the best solution? Again, as I had said, if you're in a multi-level home, living on one level, is that something that would be important to you going forward? Where are your social and your activities now? Are they in a location where if you moved, they would still be accessible to you? Or would be staying in your own home make that easier? Or if you're finding that you don't have those social activities, would moving make them more accessible? If you think about a lot of seniors apartments or condominiums, they do have active living programs, they have speakers that come in, and the same with retirement residences. So again, all of these things need to be thought of in terms of what is going to give me the highest quality of life that I could possibly have. When people think about moving, one of the things that has them not want to do it is, I'm living in my home for, I don't know, 50 years. I have accumulated a ton of stuff. And in that, Do I want to go through it? Do I want to have to downsize? What do I do with the things? My kids don't want it. And even the thought of moving and packing and doing that on my own, I don't know if I have the bandwidth really to do that. So that's something that might hold me back from moving. As well, being with your family, is this going to be the best thing? Or am I going to have help? Am I going to be doing it alone? So these are things that people think about in terms of really not wanting to move. So there are some questions that I think are really important in the consideration of to move or not to move, and let's go through them. As we had kind of alluded to, what is your present health and what would happen if there's a major downturn? Right now, you can be healthy and everything is great, but what if a sudden challenge should occur? Would your present home be okay for you to stay there? Or would you need to be able to pivot quickly to somewhere else that might give you some better options? Do you have access to medical care, and is your doctor or hospital nearby? If you're living in the suburbs or you're living in a city, generally they're going to be well placed in terms of medical care. If you're in a more rural setting, that may be a challenge, and it may be something that you want to think about. As well, if you want to maintain your current health providers, will they be able to go where you are? And in retirement residences, sometimes they do allow your providers to come in and sometimes they don't. They have their own medical staff at times, and you may be asked to change to somebody else other than who you've been used to. If you're a homeowner or a condominium owner, what is the shape your present home is in? If you had decreased mobility, could you get to your bedroom and your bathrooms? Are there any repairs that need to be made? Are you still okay with the maintenance that is important for your home? So if you have a single home, shoveling your driveway in the winter, cutting your grass in the summer, whatever that is. Where would you want to live if your spouse was no longer alive? For some people, they have thought about it and they're perfectly fine where they are. The space is familiar and they might not want to make a move. For others, you may, as I said, be living in the house that you've been in for 50 years and may decide this is a time to make a change, to start anew or to downsize because of a financial reason. So again, that's part of the situation that I think needs to be thought about. Do you have social supports, family, friends, and social activities that you enjoy? Are you part of a religious community that happens to be near where you are and you want to maintain that connection? And if so, if you move, will you still be able to do that? You're also having social activities you may have. You may belong to clubs, you may belong to a gym. Again, is that something that you would be able to maintain if you moved? And that may play into the actual locations that you are looking for when you're thinking of moving. Is your family close to you? Is that important? And then there's actually the flip side of that. You may be living in a home where you don't have these things and you're looking to move closer to family, closer to friends, closer to your social activities. Or you may want to have them in-house. So if you're in a condominium or an apartment or a retirement residence, you know that you're going to have at your fingertips somewhere to go. You won't have to worry about weather in the winter because it's going to be in-house for you. And you have to see if that's going to be important. Access to government programming. Home care that's provided by the government. There might be programs for renovations or tax credits if you're living in a home or a condominium. Is that going to be available for you? And is that going to weigh in on your situation? And can that help you make a decision? And then finally, your financial situation. And we had talked about this earlier, things like, are you still working? Are you on a pension? Do you have a limited amount of money that's coming in that you have to spread out over the rest of your life? And how is that going to happen? Do you have investments that you can draw on, RRSPs if you're in Canada, IRAs if you're in the US? All of these kinds of ways that money has been put aside that you would have access to. If it's a real estate aspect, what is the valuation of your home? Do you think that you're going to be able to use that asset to keep you going in a different location, or is it best to keep increasing the valuation of the home where you are? So those are all the things that I think you need to ask yourself to see what would be best. My suggestion is literally to take a piece of paper, put pros and cons on it so that you have a list of what is the pros of staying where I am, what is the disadvantages, or what is the advantages of moving, what are the disadvantages? And again, sitting down and having a really good objective look at that to make those decisions for you and your situation. I have a short time with you, and so what I really would like to be able to do is give you some resources to help you make the best decision for you. One of the keys that I think is important is to talk to your healthcare providers, whoever they may be. It could be a doctor, it could be a nurse practitioner. If you go to specialists, your specialists. Maybe you go for physiotherapy, maybe you go for even massage therapy. Whoever it is that you go to can help you give some input into what might be best for you in the future. Then the next that I would say is important is the financial end, and that can be a whole bunch of things. If you have investments, how are they going to work for you to help you have money in the long term for wherever it is you go, and to help you make the decision of how far will your money be able to take you? Will you be getting pensions or other kinds of influxes of money that you will be able to use in the future for your care? Do you have any kind of long-term care insurance or things like that that might also kick in to help you? If you're a homeowner or a condominium owner, what is the valuation of your home? I always suggest talking to real estate agents or financial advisors to get their input. Now, of course, it's only going to be relevant to today's market and what is happening today, but at least it gives you a picture of what is happening today, a little snapshot, and hopefully they can also give you a longer range picture based on what's happening and what they know of the industry. As well, I would go to friends who have already made these moves or who might be in the same decision process as you, so you can sit as a group. It always helps to get somebody else's opinion because we have our own thoughts, and maybe somebody has an input that you haven't thought about that could be helpful for you in the future. And again, sitting down with your family, because this really should be a group decision, although you as the person who's making the move has the ultimate decision. But your children may have ideas for you. They may have input, they may have suggestions. And sometimes it's hard to sit down with your kids and say, hey, I'm thinking about what's going to happen to me in the future, because sometimes we have hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. If I don't talk about it, it's not happening. And it may also be that your children will come to you and say, hey, I see things happening. Let's sit down and have this conversation. So having that openness to discuss, whether it comes from you or it comes from your family, doesn't matter. It's all going to help in the end. If you're looking at a retirement residence, there are standards that they need to hold. And in order for you to know which is the best, there are many checklists that are available online for you to go to, so that when you go to various places, you are comparing apples to apples. You know, is it important for there to be flexible meal times? Is it important that there's a swimming pool? Is it important for you that there's cultural activities, so that you can compare the same things one-to-one? As well, I would suggest talking to people who are already living there, because those people will have had the most experience. They can tell you the good things, they can tell you the challenges. And I would suggest doing that. And as well, if you can get access to family members who can give you their feedback, that's even a second layer of information that you can get. So I'm hoping that this is going to give you some food for thought, that you're going to now think to yourself, should I stay or should I go? Should I move or shouldn't I move? And now you have a framework of how you can make that decision best for you.
Thank you, Janice. Wonderful stuff. We got quite a few questions.
Okay.
The first question, when is the best time in life to begin to seriously consider this issue?
I'm going to say that it really depends on your situation. People are having children later, so their kids are home later, they're getting married later, they're having grandchildren later. And if you're living in a single home and you want to be able to have space for that, you may consider staying in your home longer. I would say it's quite individual, but I would say when you're in your 60s or whatever, even if you're not looking to have that move in the next 5 or even 10 years, just sitting down with your family and having this as part of a bigger discussion. I really believe this is part of the discussion of, hey, if something happened to me, I need to have my powers of attorney in place. I need to have my living will in place, because we never know when something's going to happen. And this is just part of a larger discussion. And as we get older, we may want to look closer and closer at this particular aspect if challenges start to appear.
Yeah. So how frequently, Janice, should I revisit this question?
I would say start with a plan today when things are however they are. If you see that the plan isn't working, that's the other thing that I want to really say is, if you see that the plan is not working, you can always go back and revisit it. If there's a health challenge, if there is a financial change, good or bad, you can then sit down and say, wow, I've got this influx of money I didn't know I was going to have. I can now make a different decision, or I can know that I can bring services into my present home, or I can augment the services that I might have in the retirement residence that I'm in. You can always change and pivot depending on your situation. But I would say anytime there's a change, major change in any area, to have that discussion.
Yeah, we talk about those trigger events, right? So
Right,
I was doing a continuing education course down here in Florida, and I had said, talking to a group of realtors, and we say it's not very often that somebody just one day wakes up and decides to sell their home. There's
right,
usually some type of an event, right? And so you talk about those events, whether it's decades, decades, right? If somebody's doing planning, oftentimes they say review your plans every 3 to 5 years or 10 years, whatever, right?
right,
Disability, disease, these things could happen, right? We're talking about, you mentioned the whole idea of disability, right? What happens if all of a
right.
sudden now mobility issues and even trying to get around your home? So, I mean, it's wonderful that you're talking about this, but my question is this: why do you think as a society that we're so reactive as opposed to proactive? Why is that, Janice?
Well, I would say that, to put it mildly, we are an ageist society. Youth is the desire, because we see youth as vitality and energy, and we have kind of gotten away from aging equals wisdom. And I think that's where part of it is that we don't want to look like we're getting older. We don't want to look like we may need assistance, because as a society, that's not the desired state. And so we tend to not look at reality at times, because that's not, people don't see that as the way that we want to be seen. The truth is, there are some cultures that still do revere older adults, and they do talk about it. They do plan, hey, when my parents or my grandparents get older, we know they're either going to live with us or we're going to move to live with them, so that we know they're taken care of. I do believe, though, that as the demographic gets older, as the baby boomers start getting older, that is going to shift, because as a society, again, the people who are going to have the biggest impact on our economy are going to be these older adults. They're the ones that are going to be purchasing services and goods and whatever. And so I think that that focus is going to move again to older adults, but today it's not quite there.
Yeah, so as a shift, as with your business, you've been doing this a long time. What do you hope starts to happen in the coming years when it comes to, talking about aging?
So I hope, number one, that we do talk about aging. That is the key, that we start talking. I think we need to be speaking with our governments and holding them accountable for providing some kinds of assistance and at high quality. I think that we have to look at our long-term care systems to see if it's being run in a way that is in the best interest of our older adults or of ourselves at that time. I also think that, again, moving people to making sure that what they're going to have in the future is going to work best for them. What kinds of things can be created? What kinds of living situations? I think we're going to see a lot more Golden Girls type living, where people are living in the same home that are not related, bringing in home care, bringing in housekeepers, whatever it might be, so that they can be in a lovely social situation and know that they're still going to be taken care of, have companionship, have all the advantages of being in congregate living, but in a way that still makes them as independent as possible. So I think we're going to find a lot of different adaptations to how we live as we get older.
Yeah. I want to focus a little bit more on the move about who should be involved. I know you mentioned the children.
Yes.
So I know this could be a little difficult, right? Because as you know, take myself for an example. I was able to move closer to my mom and my dad, right?
Right.
But not a lot of potential caregivers are able to do that. So when it comes to being a factor in making these decisions with potential one or two or three kids scattered all over the place, some of them don't want to be involved, some of them do. How do you, when you talk to individuals and facilitate these conversations, what do you say? What does this analysis look like?
So that is one thing that I think is very important, Jason, is that who are your resources? Who are your hands-on help, let's say, to make this a little bit easier for you? But know that there are companies that are out there specifically to help. There are downsizers. A lot of moving companies have an allied section that will come in and literally pack for you, put the stuff on the moving van, unpack for you at the other end. There are companies that will go through your possessions with you and help you decide, this should stay, this should go, this is important, this isn't important, this can be given away or donated. I think that that's an important service that people may not be aware is there. As well, I think that there are I'm going to say in religious communities, you may have people in your church or synagogue or mosque or whatever, that if you reached out to them and said, hey, I need some help, they might be able to come and help you do that, or your friends or whatever that have resources that can help you to make those moves easier for you. So there are ways to do that. There are companies that oversee care because, as you said, there are a lot of kids that don't live where their parents are. And there are what's called geriatric case managers, and you don't have to be geriatric to use their services, but they can help. They can give you local resources of people that can assist you in making these kinds of transitions.
Yeah. Is there a priority I should consider when I begin this thought process? When I looked at your questions to ask, my goodness, there's so much there, but is there kind of a priority one? If somebody's watching this today, where do they start?
I would say two things.
Okay.
One is your health, because that could be a very, very big determinator. If you're healthy, then you've got a lot of choices and there's a lot of different things that you can do. So health, I think, is one of the keys. The other is the finances. If you have a great deal of financial stability, that again will let you go wherever you want to do, or stay where you are and adapt it to whatever your needs might be. If finances are not as abundant, then look at what would be the most important thing to me. Would it be to have social support? Would it be to be able to afford to have somebody come in for home care? Would it be to renovate where I already am so that I could stay where I am? What I would do is suggest looking at those options, finding out today, what are the costs? What would it cost me today if I needed to bring somebody in a couple of times a week? What would it cost me today if I had to renovate a bedroom because now I can't, my mobility is at an issue? And then make a plan. But I would say those are the two things side by side that are the most important. I'm very happy to answer questions. You can reach out to me. I'm at janice@talkaboutaging.com. You can also go on my website, which is talkaboutaging.com. You can call me at 647-780-2258. I'm very happy to speak with you. I also have a Facebook page, which is Talk About Aging. Again, you can send questions to me. Happy to help. If you're looking for more hands-on help, I'm great at facilitating family discussions or finding resources for you, or whatever it might be that works best for you. I look forward to speaking to you in the future and helping you make decisions for your highest quality of life.
Yeah, this has been lovely. Thank you so much, Janice. I know you already gave out your contact information. I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about Knowledgeable Aging. You can go to Knowledgeable Aging, go to our website. You can see all of our upcoming and archive webinars. You can go to our YouTube page, type in Knowledgeable Aging. We ask you to subscribe. We update that a couple times per month. If podcasts are your thing, you can find us on Apple, Tunes, Spotify, etc. Till next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar. This is Knowledgeable Aging.